And what they found was that there was a 50% reduction, relative risk reduction in death from all causes, people aged 70 to 90 in the study. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I'll take that, you know. And what they also found when they looked further, they found there was an 83% relative reduction in heart disease, a 91% relative reduction in diabetes, and a 71% reduction in colon cancer. They also thought that there was clearly an association not only with eating the foods, but also total calories. In addition, when they went back and looked at this further, there have been other benefits that have been associated with this type of lifestyle. One is that eating a low-calorie Mediterranean diet is actually more effective, as I mentioned before, than drugs in terms of preventing diabetes in people who are at risk, okay? It's as effective as a first-line antihypertensive, okay? Helps prevent exacerbations of multiple sclerosis. There have been studies suggesting that. There have been studies that suggest it decreases the relative risk in terms of reoccurrence of breast cancer. And then, as I mentioned before, reduction in overall mortality, cardiovascular disease, and colon cancer. But what was really the important part of the diet? Because no one had really studied that before. Well, what they found is that the important thing were vegetables and legumes. Okay? And I think I mentioned this before, when you look at all these long-lived societies, you look at Okinawa, if you look at some of these so-called blue cultures, the mainstay of their diet is vegetables and legumes. You know, because they can't afford anything else. They can't afford fish and meat and stuff like that, so they eat vegetables and legumes. Nuts in small amounts, okay? And particularly on Crete, they found that they ate lots of purslane, which is a type of lettuce, and it was high in omega-3 fatty acids, which can also be found in flaxseed oil, or ground flax seeds. Red wine seemed to have more of a positive effect than other types of spirits. And Pinot Noir has the highest concentration of resveratrol. And it's thought the reason why the Pinots probably have the highest concentration, not that I'm a wine connoisseur, but I think it's because they're the most delicate grapes. So what resveratrol does is a sort of a fungicide for the grapes. It prevents fungus. So I think that's why those grapes have higher levels of resveratrol. And then olive oil, the polyphenols in olive oil were associated with decreased cancer risk, particularly colon cancer. And what's interesting is that different olive oils from different sources have different amounts of polyphenols. So the ones from Crete, you know, and that's one of the reasons why I thought it was nice for Cleo's to provide that tasting for us, has particularly high levels of polyphenols. Okay? And then obviously total calories was important, as I mentioned before. What was very interesting, what had a negative association was grass-fed beef, because in Europe there is no corn-fed beef, okay, and dairy. And I think the reason that dairy has a negative correlation is because of casein. Casein is a dairy protein, and in some people it seems to have inflammatory properties, you know. What's also interesting is that fish correlated neither positively or negatively, and whole grains correlated neither positively or negatively. And I could not find anything about poultry. So I imagine it's, you know, wasn't a big thing one way or the other. So if we look back at the Mediterranean diet, knowing what we know now, how would we want to redo this thing? So what would you all put on the bottom? Vegetables, right. What would you do next?
Legumes.
Yeah, I would do like legumes, and I would probably put fruit, you know, and maybe whole grains. What about up here?
Blood.
Good choice. Yeah, that wouldn't be my choice, but that's okay. What would you? I would probably go with the things like olive oil would be in there, and nuts in small amounts, so I would probably take like nuts and olive oil. But I would also probably include the things that correlated neither positively or negatively, like fish, poultry, and whole grains. And then up here, I would have like the red meat and the sweets and the dairy products. You know, that's how I would do it. Probably eggs up here. So that's how I would remake the food pyramid based on these studies, if that makes sense. Does that make sense to everyone? Right? So obviously a big concern for a lot of people is weight loss. there's several reasons why we tend to fail at it. The first thing is it's not about willpower, okay? You can't not eat something like the whole day and expect to go home and just eat a little bit. You know, it's not about willpower, it's really about changing habits. We also have to acknowledge our imperfections and addictions, okay? And we need to realize that sugar is addictive. If you don't address that high insulin state and you don't address the addictions, you're going to have problems because immediately once you start eating at it, you're going to start eating it again, you're going to continue to eat it. It's very difficult, okay? And then I think it's important to realize that breaking an addiction takes 2 to 3 weeks and breaking a habit takes 4 to 6 weeks. The other thing is I think we still eat till we're full. But think about eating till you're 80% full, not till you're full. When people have looked at the keys to weight loss, you know, these are the keys. Number 1 is eating the correct foods. Number 2, I mean, not in any particular order. 2 is portion control, right? Think 80% full, decrease plate size. 3, personal accountability and support, okay? I don't want people, it doesn't help to be accountable if all you do is berate yourself, right? You gotta be supportive, right? And then exercise, okay? Now most of the commercial weight loss programs, what they do is they focus on portion control and accountability and support, right? Because they can't make any money with you eating the right foods, and they can't make any money, you know, with anything. They got to focus on what they make money in, right? But really, I think if you do what we said and focus on vegetables, vegetables don't have a lot of calories. You're going to get your own portion control. And all you need to do is then find a buddy to support you, you know, and be accountable to what you're eating. It shouldn't be that hard, right? This is what we've been doing in our office, and it's been working for a lot of people. What we ask people to do is we'd like people to avoid bread and all bread products. And the reason why I like people to avoid bread products is, first of all, there's sugar in bread. But second of all, most breads are 50% white flour. And what I want people focusing on is not bread, I want them focusing on whole grains. You know, like brown rice, or you want to have some pasta or those things. But I don't want them eating refined products, okay? I like people to try giving up milk and milk products, not eggs. Eggs are not dairy. But milk and milk products. And the reason for that is that 60% of the population is lactose intolerant anyhow. Let's take a step back and look at cereals. Cereals probably have some of the highest sugar content of any foods known to man. I took a shopping trip into Fresh Market, and I challenged everyone to find me a healthy cereal. It took them 15 minutes. Oatmeal, right. Oatmeal, if you look at the cereals that don't have any sugar, you got oatmeal, you got Cheerios, you got shredded wheat, and now you got a few others. Right. The Ezekiel cereal's fine. It's just $9 a box. That's a lot, right? And it really does taste like cardboard. I mean, you know, but my point is that I mean, I think almond milk's, you don't have to give up milk, but my point is that a lot of people feel better when they give up milk because casein is an inflammatory protein for a lot of people. Some people, their allergies get better. I've had people with their muscle aches have gotten better. So I see nothing wrong with people giving up milk for a little bit and seeing how they feel. You can use almond milk. You know, you could use, you know, almond milk's probably a good choice. You could try soy milk because it's organic soy. You could try a substitute if you want to do that. You know, there are substitutes for that. But I think that the cereals are, with the exception of oatmeal, like are a problem, you know. Any food that has more than 4 grams of sugar per serving or has sugar as one of its top 3 ingredients or high fructose corn syrup. So that means you have to read the labels. And I like people to give up corn because corn is pretty sweet and sort of a storage form of sugar, as is potatoes. And then we want people to give up diet drinks and stevia because we don't want people to continue to have their cravings for sweetness. Okay. The other thing that for the first 2 weeks you might want to try is to give up nuts. Because what happens is everyone thinks nuts are really healthy, and they are healthy, but not a pound of them, you know? And the problem is the way that they're packaged is like you can just eat so many at a time. But really, you know, 10 nuts, 10 almonds is 170 calories. So if we're thinking about 1,800 calories a day, you know, pretty soon you're getting your calorie allotment if you're eating a lot of nuts. I've had a lot of people that have done everything right, but they can't lose weight. And then we go back and look at their food diaries, and what we find is they're, well, how many nuts are you eating? you know, and that's sort of like been the key. So it's not that it's bad, it's just that they are healthy. They are healthy. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying if you're trying to lose weight, losing weight, getting positive reinforcement helps. And if you're eating a lot of high-calorie foods, it's still tough to lose weight, even if it's healthy. If you're trying to maintain weight, that's a whole different issue. Okay, increase your vegetables and legumes and exercise 20 minutes per day. Let's dispel this myth about like having to eat every 2 hours, okay? No one has to eat every 2 hours, and the reason why people feel like you have to eat every 2 hours is because people are eating sugar. They're getting these wild swings, you know. No. It is that you're not eating. Protein is not a source of energy. Glucose is a source of energy. If you're not eating any carbohydrates, you're not going to get energy. Okay? The reason why the Atkins diet works is because people gave up sugar, not because they produce ketones. Okay? So it's not about protein. I have yet to find an American with a protein deficiency. Okay? Just like I can't find anyone with a 5-hour energy drink deficiency. You know, it just... Understand there's a difference between sugar and carbohydrate. Sugar is a carbohydrate, but sugar is the problem. Carbohydrates are not the problem. And in fact, when you look at people who eat low glycemic plant-based diets, okay, which are all pretty much carbohydrate, they live longer than people that eat meat-based diets. So it's not about the protein, it's about the sugar. Okay? That's a really important message to take home. Okay? Now, granted, some people feel better eating certain things, but you got to have glucose for energy. Protein is not an efficient way to produce energy. And most people, you know, if we look at long-lived cultures that are working in the fields, they're not eating every 2 hours. They're eating pretty much 3 meals a day, or even breakfast and dinner. You know, you don't have to eat every 2 hours. I think it was a very good marketing campaign by the vitamin companies. They've done a great job of convincing everyone that we need to have like 5 mini meals. But there's no evidence really to support that, in my mind, from what I've read. And that's a multi-million-dollar industry too. You know, it's not a health food industry, it's a vitamin industry, it's a supplement industry. Okay? Because the real health foods are what the people in Crete are eating, what the people in Okinawa are eating, what long-lived cultures are eating. They're not eating supplements, they're not going to the gym, they're not eating like 5-hour energy drinks, they're not eating like, you know, shakes, they're eating like whole foods. There are components of alcohol that are helpful, you know, that seem to enhance longevity, like resveratrol and flavonoids, and there may be other reasons why alcohol is associated with longevity. Alcohol is a social beverage, and community is very important. But what happens is after we start eating, you know, a couple drinks per day, then the health risks of alcohol begin to decline. So when we look at exercise itself, you know, we like to incorporate daily stretches. Aerobic exercise is important. And even if you can't get to the gym, you know, if you have heart disease, you know, we want you trying to get more vigorous exercise because we want to get that remodeling effect. But for the most part, for people, even if you can't get to the gym, you know, try and exercise in some form 30 minutes a day, just by walking or doing something. Go up steps, you know, park farther away. But the more exercise that you get, the better off that you will be. Stress reduction. We all have stress, but doing some form of deep breathing each day or some form of meditation or just some form of relaxation, I think is a healthy thing to do. I think the other thing that's healthy is if you tend to be one of the people that tends to have an affinity for watching like cable news every day, you know, or listening to talk radio or those type things, you might want to like take a little break. That's an entertainment business. It's not really a news business, right? You know, just listen to some music. See how you do. See if like you don't feel better, you know. Take a periodic news holiday. You know, the world's not going to end. At least if you don't read the newspaper, you won't know about it, right?